Hello, everyone. Agent of Doubt here, and this little ramble for the Breakfast Club is actually inspired by some of the videos by Serious Mind on the Breakfast Club channel. Partly because he's been sharing more about his professional life that I didn't know about back when he was just posting on his Serious Mind channel. He works in the field that I left for the field that I'm in now. I was a electronics calibration technician in the Army, and that's what I did for GE for a very long time. And working with instrumentation was my bread and butter. All the way through after I left GE and worked for a union, and I was up vessel towers placing instruments on them, and then trying to get Fanuc systems and everything IEEE to work. And he will be the only one who understands that part. But the other part of his videos that is inspiring this ramble is the intro, where you can hear a water pipe. Because I feel like a bunch of people that I run into in my daily life have created an identity for themselves where it has incorporated drugs and made them to be a normal, natural part of their lives, to the point where they identify with them, and they will present that as part of them. And it makes my life a little awkward, because the career that I left electronics for is counseling, and specifically drug counseling. And it just makes it awkward in my daily life when I'm trying to interact with friends, and a lot of what they have identified with is very contrary to what I see in the workplace, because I see the worst case scenarios of what can happen if you do drugs to an extreme, and I see that the drugs, whatever they are, over time can wear at your ability to just put them away. It is the natural progression of addiction that it starts out in a period of time where you can put it down and you can stop, and then it gets harder and harder and harder the longer you go. And it does really rewire the neural pathways in the brain to where it robs people of self-control. And these are things that I feel have been just pushed aside for more new age thinking that sometimes just does not reflect what I know to be true through science and through experience at my job. For instance, I like to wear this lanyard at work through whatever buildings I'm walking in and out of, whichever people I'm working for. It's just a sports team that I like, right? And I like breaking dress codes, basically. But I've added some pins on it, like this Evolve Fish pin, which can signal to a fellow atheist that I can indeed be someone who can counsel them. I can just flash that, because some people that I run across, they don't like to be counseled by Christians, especially if they've gone through a lot of 12-step groups that have a lot of praying and a lot of cramming God down their throat if they're an atheist. So this is something that works with like 5% of my clients, to just have some pins that reflect that I'm not like that. And I'm glad that I can provide that service to that little niche. But I've got some other industry pins, but this one right here I actually bought this on eBay. It's a 1981 vintage Just Say No pin, right? And Just Say No, the campaign started by Nancy Reagan, has been maligned for decades now as being something that was out of touch and did not teach kids anything. And from my point of view, from my perspective, it was a good program. And I'm not saying the war on drugs is a good idea, but the slogan, Just Say No, is a reflection of the need for people to have refusal skills. Peer pressure is a real thing, right? But also, when you are trying to right your life and you're trying to start living a cleaner life and going in a better direction, and someone keeps offering you things, it's very good to be able to have a slew of different ways of saying no. Like, I'm trying to get this new job and I'm going to have a drug test, so I can't have that right now. I already feel like I'm in a good place right now. I don't want to ruin that. All sorts of different things that you can say to say no, right? And these refusal skills are something that a lot of people lack. It's how salesmen get their foot in the door in the first place, is people just feel like it's rude to say no, right? So there is a lot of merit to this Just Say No campaign that just gets swept under the rug by people laughing at it, like it was ill thought up. And I feel for all of the people that were passionate about it, because they had something, they did, and unfortunately the war on drugs aspect of Ronald Reagan's legacy is what's going to tarnish this Just Say No campaign forever. But being that I live in Colorado, and this is becoming fast a cannabis mecca here in Denver, I feel like some of my friends, they've been glorifying weed as if it's a panacea that cures every illness, right? Like thousands of different uses for cannabis, and you can grow hemp for paper and shirts and rope, and I'm like, it sounds like the bottles that a snake oil salesman would sell. Like, oh, it cures cancer, it cures Alzheimer's disease, it cures this, it cures that, it cures everything. Everybody needs this in their life. And it's not my experience, and it's not what the science backs up. Like, people who use cannabis being at least 2 times more likely to have psychosis later in life. And I run into that in the workplace, and it's very awkward for me to see people going through their daily lives playing basically Russian roulette with their future, and I see it with every drink, every smoke, every bong rip, that could be the magic beer bottle that starts the cascade into madness, And there are other things that stand out to me, like if people really were smoking pot for solely medical reasons, that it had health benefits, then why is it the psychoactive component of pot, the THC, has gone up in concentration over the years because growers are breeding to the point where we've got medical marijuana that has just made the concentration so high that now on the western slope, I've even heard that there is a championship strain of weed that has 42% content. It measured, right? And the bottom end of what would be recreational now is like 15% concentration. Back in the 70s, when people got some of their notions about weed, that those kind of dirt weed strains were like 1 or 2%, right? Meanwhile, the CBD that gets touted as being the actual medicine in many cases, that other chemical component to it, CBD has gone maybe from 1% to 2% in the same amount of time. This would be like your grandfather capturing a bunch of wolves, and by the time you're born, he's bred a domestic dog. Or capturing a bunch of wild boars and javelinas, and by the time you're born, having a domesticated pig. You know, capturing bisons, and then by the time you're born, having cows. This giant leap in crossbreeding and genetics that they've done on the western slope, where we have the best chemists in Colorado, and they all like to snowboard, right? This giant leap to now like 42 fucking percent. I just can't believe that people are putting that much effort into research efforts to make that happen if people are smoking it for the THC rather than the CBD, when CBD hasn't really changed. You know? It seems a bit off to me. And let's make another comparison to the Reagan era that I'm seeing now in my life now. Back then, crack was an epidemic, and it still kind of is here in Denver. At least what I'm seeing. But high content THC strains being sold recreationally is a bigger epidemic. In fact, if you look at the same places where crack would be sold in inner cities, targeting low-income minority groups, you look to Denver or any other place where marijuana has been legalized, and where are the dispensaries? They're all concentrated in the low-income, minority-rich places. And what I'm saying is the black part of town. I'll just lay it out for you like that. Just like crack was targeting a certain demographic, so is weed. And it's telling you, just pull up a map, on Google Maps, hit dispensaries, and where do you see all the dispensaries around Denver? Mostly concentrated around Aurora. 5 Points, and it's sad to see that it's the same pattern from decades ago with a different drug happening with this drug. And what people think now is, oh, well, this is the safe drug. Pot's so much better than crack. And I will give them that it is, preferable to them smoking crack would be them smoking weed, but it is something that destroys lives. It is something that when you take a drug test in order to get a job, you're not going to get it if you have weed in your system, just like you wouldn't get a job if you had crack in your system. And weed stays in your system far longer. You have to quit at least a month out if you're going to be applying for jobs. Whereas cocaine can get through your system in as little as 3 days to be safe. And if you're wondering about the title, 710 is the new 420. Read the 710 upside down. It's the oils, the concentrates of THC that I'm referring to. It's very awkward to see all of the misconceptions of cannabis being spread, and I feel like I can't say anything in my real life to real people outside of my practice and not come off as a sort of snob, as a sort of out of touch person. You know, it's very difficult to navigate outside of putting on my professional hat and being across from someone who's actually recognized that they have a problem. In real life social settings, I can't really take the knowledge that I have and give it to people easily, you know, without it being extremely awkward. Last thing I'll show you. This right here, this is my last can of Mountain Dew that I had January 4th, 2016. So this is like a year and a half ago. And I've lost like 25 pounds. And I was somebody who drank 6 to 8 cans a day. And the reason why I quit was some of the things that I would say to people about their other vices just started making sense to me in my life. And it was applicable at such a lower level, like with caffeine, you know, or tobacco. These concepts that I was telling people about how to live a better life, they are applicable at, you know, the social use level. You can live a better life if you want to. And I've seen that is true for me, and I just see that it's a very hard concept to get across to other people in regular social settings. And it makes it a very awkward thing for me to be around people that are just using socially. Catch you later, Breakfast Club watchers. Please don't take anything that I said as a slight to anyone else who's a regular user here on the Breakfast Club. I was just trying to talk about my awkwardness.